Today, we have the honor of chatting with legendary drummer Gene Hoglan of the band Dark Angel, who has also worked with bands like Testament, Strapping Young Lad, Fear Factory, Dethklok, as well as many others. I hope you enjoy.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Excellent.
Great.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Sorry it took a moment. We've been trying to get the Wi-Fi going in this venue, and I'm up in a production office here. So,
Oh, nice. I was wondering if you were going to be in a bus or in a hotel room or
right, yeah, we've got sound check in about half an hour ish. So, that's where we're at right now.
All right, perfect. You got tonight and tomorrow night are the last ones for the Stark Angel tour, correct?
That is correct. Yep, we're in Berkeley this evening, and then tomorrow we're at the Belasco Theater in Los Angeles. So both
Nice.
shows are promising to be amazing. We got a big packed bill for both. We've got Sacred Reich, Violence, Hyrax, Midnight, and Interceptor on both of our last two shows. And earlier in the tour, we had Hyrax and also Void. So the tour has been great, and we're ending it off just ending it with a bang. Absolutely.
Right, and right by your home because you live in San Diego, so you get to go just get have a short ride home afterwards.
Indeed, yeah, we've got the ride taken care of, so we'll be in our bed tomorrow night, probably about 3 a.m. or so, kind of thing.
Do you have a break at that point for a little bit? Because you usually going and have been for
Indeed, yeah.
decades.
That's kind of the way it goes on this one as well. We start the Death to All run pretty directly after this one. I think I have about uh, a very short amount of time to get prepared for that one.
Oh
So
goodness.
So there you go. So yeah, it's nonstop. I've been on the road
Yeah.
pretty much since February of this year,
Oh my
and
goodness.
that's the way every year goes. Four different projects going all at
Yeah.
once. So that's the nature of the beast, and I'm in a very fortunate position to be able to
Yes.
do what the only thing I've ever wanted to do with my entire life. I get to do it. So
Yeah.
no complaints from me, I tell you.
When Death Clock came back, were you kind of like, oh boy, how am I going to add this to everything else?
Well, Dethklok is always that's one of my easier sort of projects because with that one, Brendan and I we do a lot of prep work beforehand and like we get the sets together and then when we're putting the actual like content that's going up on the screen together, I get involved in that and making sure that Brendan and I are always making sure like say even the the pacing and like even the little gaps between the songs, make sure we got those are just right, for for the show and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of that work gets taken care of sometime before the run, and then usually about the only thing I need to do is just be prepared on drums. And when it comes to a Dark Angel or a Death to All, or else anything involving like my session work or solo stuff or whatever it might be, I'm way more hands-on with all of that, which you kind of have to be. And that's where
Yeah.
it's a lot of work to prepare for it. And then as you are on the road, there's a ton of work every night just to stay on top of all forms of the business. So, and then there's payroll every couple of weeks kind of thing. You got to deal with all that, making sure all the
Yes.
bus payments get made and you're making sure that all the hotels are getting booked. Fortunately, we have great folks in in our camp that take care of that, tour managers
Good.
and things like that. So we're always real fortunate in that regard. But as the boss, you do have to oversee everything and keep your eyeballs on top of every item of everything. So that's just the nature of the beast, especially today in today's
Yeah.
touring climate. Boy, there's some new challenges there, I tell
Oh,
you.
definitely.
So and
Yeah.
everybody knows. I think a lot of the other bands that exist on the planet, everybody's kind of letting the fans know that
Yeah.
sometimes as a fan, sometimes we think, man, all you guys got to do is just ride around in your limos, just take the private jets and ride on your big old tour buses and stuff. And that's always
Yeah.
adorable. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, definitely not how it is. And really probably wasn't even how it was back in the day, but definitely
Oh,
not how
never.
it is now.
Yeah, right. It's never been that way. It's always been a lot of work, but this is where, you do weed out the lifers from the guys that are like, hey man, I tried it for a couple of years. It's not for me. I've been on both sides of
Mhm.
the angles on that where, I'm a lifer. I'm doing exactly what I intended to do since I've been 13 years old.
Yeah, so crazy.
And I've been with people that have been like, "Hey, man, this one tour that I just did right now, I wanted to try it. I did. I'm good. I'm okay. So long. Thanks for the one tour ride, and I'm gonna go have a career, and stick around my homestead kind of thing. That happens as well. So you got to
Yeah.
be prepared for both sides of it.
Do you remember the moment that you recognized and realized that this is what you were going to be able to do with life instead of have to do the 9 to 5?
Well, I always knew that, boy, I am just such a legend of lethargy that I was like, man, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this 9 to 5 stuff. But when I was 11, I remember reading an interview with like Peter Criss from Kiss. And I remember in that interview, he said, yeah, when I was a kid, I went to my parents and I said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a rock and roll drummer and I'm going to play Madison Square Garden and, own big cars and houses and things like that. And so I just kind of parroted Peter Criss, went to my parents when I was about 11 and said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a rock and roll metal drummer. And their initial reaction was like, okay, that's adorable, cool. But then when I was 13 and I started really getting involved in the LA scene, that's when they were kind of like, okay,
He
well,
means
you
it.
might consider getting an education, or, I did have a rather athletic, I had some athletic prowess in baseball. And my dad was always like, my dad was like my best friend too. He was always awesome. He was like, well, son, how about, why don't you just try being a baseball player till you're like 30? Retire when you're 30, retire a millionaire, and then do your heavy metal and your rock and roll. And I was like, oh, Dad, it doesn't quite work out that way. Um, so there you go. And they always understood. But there's, this is something where, when I am 13 and I'm seeing all, like, that was one thing that I started doing when I was 13. I've mentioned this a million times. I started going to all the LA rock and roll clubs, all the Los Angeles area, Los Angeles, Hollywood, Orange County, all those clubs, getting to know all these bands, going to the band's parties after the show and stuff. I wasn't a drinker or a drug doer or anything, but I would go to the parties and hang out, and I was just a sponge, like every bit of this, playing gigs and how you comport yourselves after the gig, all of this. I was
Yeah, the whole culture of it.
I was I was soaking it all in, and that's when I was starting to realize, like, and I've said this many times, it's like, say you got a 5 piece band or whatever, but that one guitar, everybody else, they're partying, have a good time, it's all mellow. But there was always like one guy in each band that like couldn't quite keep it together, getting a little
Mhm.
too liquored up or acting a fool. And you could see the reactions of his bandmates. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, I can see this guy might not last in this.
Yeah.
And these guys give him the boot, get a new
Hmm.
guy in responsible, just better suited to the lifestyle that was to come, rock and roll, touring, all that kind of stuff. They would sign the big contract after that, and then they would shoot to superstardom, leaving that guy behind, and
Yeah.
that guy bouncing around from band to band,
Hmm.
alcohol, all that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
always just I paid attention to all of that
Hmm.
sort of, that just how things were. And I thought, well, just, in order to survive at this, that you need survival skills. And so, that's why I decided young, man. It's like, if I gotta sleep in my car or couch surf or, sleep in a studio, a rehearsal studio or anything, I was ready to do all of that, which
You're welcome.
I've done all of that,
Yeah.
spent a month at times, sleeping in my vehicle because you know nobody in this town that you just this country that you just moved to this other
Yeah.
and you don't really know anybody and you got a truck so sleep in the cab of your truck kind of thing. I've done all that, but
Yeah.
that's how passionate about being able to make music I've been, and so the times when times were tough or lean or whatever they might be, because that's how it goes when you're starting out,
Yeah.
when you're starting new bands from the ground up, that just happens. And but the exciting thing is like you might not be doing all that, fantastic financially. That wasn't important. Making great music, playing with some killer dudes, some great musicians, and making killer music, that was always the number one, like, hey, I got that. So all this other stuff I can deal with. Putting out killer
Right.
music, that's number one importance. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And you obviously have done that with plenty of bands and people throughout the
Well,
years.
thank you very much. That's cool. Thank you.
Something I think is really important to ask everybody, especially someone that is as busy as you. What are some things that you do to help with your mental health, balance, self-care to keep yourself right throughout all of this?
Wrap it up in a big ball and chuck it in the trash because like you just like I know I do understand that mental health has become uh, a bit of a talking point over the past few years, like dealing with a lot of Live Nation venues and stuff, and they've got the little placards up in the corner of the dressing rooms, like with QR codes saying, "Hey, man, if you need mental help,
Oh,
just touring life is challenging, and we know what it's like, and all that stuff." And I will freely admit I kind of come from the era of,
we don't talk about it.
tough it out, kid.
Yeah.
You're fine. And I've always been fine. Like I said, it hasn't gotten like mentally challenging at all until you have to wear a dozen different hats. You got to
Yeah.
be the or the project, or you got to also be in, like I was just saying, taking care of payroll, making sure that bus payments get made and flights get booked and hotels get booked. And then all of a sudden, if some kind of, you're putting out fires 3 or 4 or 5 shows down the road. And
Uh,
so everybody whom I've toured with, where I'm in charge of something, they've seen the 1,000 yard stare, just where you're
yeah.
just, and it doesn't mean anything, but you're just your figures are going, like you've seen those memes where there's all these figures just appearing in front of whoever it is, and that happens. So meant this lifestyle is not for everybody,
For sure.
flat out, and
Mm.
um, it is something where and like I said, I'm not really from the generation or the upbringing of where you have a what are they called, the psychiatrist or therapist, the rapist. I'm not from that sort of
Mhm.
background, and I got music.
Yeah,
Music,
right.
great therapy, and as long as physical health, that's something to consider. Having your
Mhm.
physical health together, and that's why I've over the past decade and a half, I've started trying to take better care of myself physically. You get a little soft out here on the road, but I used to be gigantic. And with all those health problems that come when you're being gigantic, all the diabetes and cramps, and seizures, and just lack of health, I've tried to mitigate all of that and retain a semblance of health on the road as much as you can when
Yeah.
you're getting after show food that's pizzas and burgers and whatever it is, you just um that's how that goes. But your physical health, I'm 58 right now, and I'm playing like I'm 28 kind of thing. I'm playing better than I have for much of my career, so I'm fortunate in that regard, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What does Gene Hoglan do outside of music? Like, do you have any hobbies outside of it, or you eat, sleep, and breathe it? Which is not
This
not shocking.
it's that, and like say when people ask me, hey, what's in your iPod, or what's in your playlist or whatever, and I'm always like the next project,
Yeah, because you're
like
going.
right. I mean, like right now, I'm supposed to be really reviewing the new, the new Death to All set that we're putting together when we leave essentially next week. Um, so as soon as I finish this run, we finish tomorrow night, like I say. So I don't know what day it is today, but the day after tomorrow, I'll probably be in the studio, getting the studio prepared for the guys coming in to rehearse, and also getting my rehearsal done because I haven't rehearsed that much for this Death to All run. But in terms of chops, you always got to have your
Mhm.
chops together.
Right.
And my chops, I have Dark Angel chops right now, which aren't necessarily Death or
No,
Death to
for
All
sure. You have
chops.
different styles and different feels for every project that you do.
In,
Absolutely.
Indeed. So I've got to kind of make that transition really quick and be able to pull that off seamlessly. So when the next run starts, like next week or the week after, whatever it is, it's coming up quick. I know. Um, I'm able to just jump right in and be gig ready by show one. You can't really
Right.
take you can't take 3, 4 gigs to kind of work your way into it. We got to be like slamming from out of the chute there. So and we will.
Yeah.
Bobby, Max, and Stevie D. They're all such incredible players that we can record a live album every single night. They're so tight, so amazing. There's never a clunk note or a clunker or or a shit the bed moment. That just does not happen. I'm the scrub of the four musicians on stage, definitely.
Has there ever been a time in your history, because you've been high in demand for a long, long, long time because of all the things, we know you're the atomic clock, you're the human metronome, you're all the things that all these people have said throughout all the years. Has there ever been a time where someone has reached out or a project that you've gone, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this, and yet you somehow just figured out how to do it?
Oh, that's half the time. God, really. There's been many a project where it's like, okay, well, you have something on the books right here, and then you have something on the books right here. But if you're really diligent about it, you can take this moment here, jab in that project here where you can be able to do it, and you might have to be learning a recording session's worth of material on a flight home or in the car ride up from San Diego to LA because you're gonna hit the ground running and get this session in and then leave to the next thing. I've got something like that possibly coming up directly after the Death to All run. I've been requested by my drum company Pearl in Europe, if I could come over and do a drum clinic in Spain a couple of days
Yes.
after the Death to All run in December. And I would, I've been on the road pretty nonstop since February. I'd love to come home and
Hmm.
not have to take 2 transcontinental plane flights and stuff.
Right.
It's my it's for my drum company to help them out of kind of a situation they're in with a prior booked drummer that had to pull
Uh,
out at the last minute. So they're like, we're just, can you do this? And yeah, I want to do a solid for Pearl. They're my guys. So, sometimes responsibility takes over too. But
yeah, for sure.
there are definitely times. I mean, there was one time in 2016 where over the course of 4 or 5 months, I spent a total of, I think it was 27 hours at home. And that was just, you fly in at 10 o'clock at night on one night, and then the next morning at 6 a.m., you got to be on the next
Uh,
plane flying out to Europe or whatever, because that's just the way the schedule worked. And I had
mhm.
6 different projects on the go. I remember that. And so since 2022, it's been something relatively similar, where I believe up until this point of this year, I started working in December 1st of 2024. And I think now I have had 4 days off because I think it was 3 days off. Maybe it's 5 days off or something since December 1st of 2024 and getting ready for all of this stuff in here in 2025. It just happens, that's just how it works. So you do
I think
what you
I
can.
saw you in November with Dethklok. I think it was November when you were guys were here. Um,
Where are you located?
in Boise, Idaho.
Okay, yeah, we just played Boise a few
Yep.
days ago. Okay,
Yeah,
very
with Dark Angel, yep.
right.
Uh, Um, oh, I just totally lost my question.
We were just
Uh,
talking about Dethklok at Revolution Live in Boise.
yep. Yeah, with Dragon Force and Necrogoblicon, which was the weirdest lineup, but it was so amazing. Like it was the coolest show I've ever been to because of
Awesome.
the lineup.
That's great. And it is an intentionally weird lineup because the entertainment value is
Oh,
over the top with that.
yes.
You get the spectacle, you get all three different bands.
And I love all three bands, so it was perfect for me. But I thought I was really worried that people that didn't like power metal were gonna not be kind to Dragon Force, and they loved it.
And that's because of Dragon Force themselves. Like,
Yeah.
talk about getting up there, owning it, winning,
Yes.
and winning an audience over
Totally.
big
They
giant
really did.
arcade games and all that. I mean, they own their stage every night, and they
Yeah.
they won their fandom legitimately, absolutely.
It was so cool to see because I could see Necrogoblicon and Dethklok like being kind of the same kind of crowd, but I was genuinely worried. I mean, I'd seen Dragon Force before, so I knew what they were capable of, but I thought, oh, people are going to be terrible, and they did definitely win over that crowd. It was so cool to see.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah. Because it's October, I know we were getting close to time. Because it's October, I like to ask, are you a horror movie or book fan at all?
Nope.
Nope, not your thing. It's
Nope.
okay. I totally get
I
it.
will freely admit the reality of everything and seeing all the stuff I've seen. Horror movies are adorable. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, those are just sweet little.
that's
Yeah, that's like some some fairy tales and things like that. No, they do nothing for me, and so no, but I know there's a lot of folks that are like woo, and about them. So, but I admit boy, give me some puppies and kitties and bunnies at the end of the night, and I'm good with that. These days, I, I I've seen enough. I'm good. So
yeah. Well, and as long as you've been in the scene, I'm sure you have unfortunately seen some unfortunate and brutal things in life, so I definitely understand that.
indeed. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking some time with me, especially when you're so busy. I appreciate you taking time right before you're getting back on stage again. Um, I hope you have a really good last couple shows and you get at least a little bit of a breather before the next stunt.
Well, like I said, got tomorrow night my own bed, so that's going to be excellent. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh,
And
and San Diego's like one of the best places on earth. I love San Diego. It's so pretty and
yeah,
it's just so nice.
fantastic. Well, all righty. Well, Nico, sure do appreciate it. You take care, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. You too. Have a good night.
We'll see you. We'll see you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.